characters hold such a special place in our hearts because animated films make up some of our most formative movie experiences as kids.
So many kids watch these movies over and over.
And over and over and over and over and over.
I hate everything you just said.
So, recently, Mia Chek, who is the actress playing Toph in Season 2 of Netflix's ongoing live-action adaptation of Avatar the Last Airbender, was interviewed about her upcoming role in what is currently one of Netflix's most successful projects to date. When asked about how she plans to play Toph, she gave an answer that set a lot of fans of the original off, with her stating that her version of Toph will be slightly older and more feminine, since she wants to work into a more humanizing space for her, since, as she puts it, she was originally a cartoon. There's obviously a lot that can be said about the implications of this quote overall, like how it appears to be saying characters can only be humanized if they appear extremely feminine, but it's specifically worth focusing on how Mia Chek addresses the fact that Toph was originally a cartoon. The need to separate Toph from the live-action version of the character speaks to a much larger issue that has actually permeated Hollywood for many, many years now, and that's the fact that animation is just not as respected as a legitimate art form. For about as long as it has existed as a medium of film now, animation has had this reputation in the mind of general audiences of being something purely made for kids. It's actually a big reason why these live-action remakes are often created to begin with. Aside from obviously being an easy cash grab, of course. Choosing to adapt an animated property into a live-action version often stems from a studio's mentality of live-action film being the only real way to make a film, and that animation is clearly only for children. Gee, wait till they see Berserk, bet they won't be saying that then. For years upon years now, Hollywood seems to consistently devalue animation as an art form to tell any story you want, while continuing to praise live-action film as the one true medium, and also nominating movies like Emilia Perez for Best Picture for some reason.
Man to woman.
From penis to vagina.
So today, I want to discuss where exactly this mentality seems to stem from, how it's currently affecting the landscape of American animation as a whole right now, and how it differs from how the majority of the world actually views animation overall. Since, believe it or not, animation is often taken a lot more seriously in pretty much every other country. Animation deserves immense amounts of respect for being a widely creative platform allowing anyone to tell any kind of story they want, and I really want to shine a light on why animation can stand toe-to-toe with live action, and in some cases be even better than it. I think it's first important to bring up the big CGI flying elephant in the room, that being live action remakes of animated films and TV shows. In the past 10 years or so, there have been so many remakes of beloved animated films and TV shows from every studio from Disney to Nickelodeon to now DreamWorks apparently even. Man, come on guys, I thought you were better than this. The critical reception to these remakes is often extremely varied, with some being received pretty decently and others very much not. So why exactly do these keep being made? Well, on the surface, the obvious answer would be money. So many of these remakes have made over $1 billion each, or very close to that. But this isn't the only reason these are made so frequently, rather, they also exist to try and slowly make an audience subconsciously gravitate more towards live-action film rather than animated ones. When a studio like Disney, who has been known throughout their entire history to produce family-oriented, timeless animated films, begins to remake many of those films in live action, it's a way to present their audience with something they're familiar with and say, hey, you remember this old animated film you loved as a kid? Well, you don't need that anymore. We've got the new improved version of that right here in live action with totally not uncanny CGI, and actors who are clearly perfect for their roles. Hashtag live action sweep, baby! This is just a way for any studio, whether it's Disney or not, to try and sell an established audience on a new form of filmmaking by using an animated film they love to try and sell them on live action instead. It's a cheap, lazy business move. But interestingly enough, a lot of the times when companies do this, it ends up proving the prowess of animation more than anything over a live action film, surprisingly. When you create a film in animation, essentially the sky is the limit. You can create pretty much anything you want because the only real limit is what your imagination can come up with, as well as what you can do with whatever tools you choose to animate with, whether it's stop motion puppets or simply pencils and animation cell papers. With a live-action film, however, there are going to be limits to what you can feasibly do, no matter how much big-budget CGI you throw into a project for good measure. In particular, with a lot of the live-action remakes that keep being made, this is especially apparent. Take a look at the 2019 Disney remake of the classic 1992 film Aladdin, for instance. The original animated Aladdin stood out amongst a lot of the other 90s Disney films for its vibrant, curvy style and the fact the movie's entire color palette only consisted of 3 primary colors: yellow, red, and blue. Because it utilized a much more cartoonish, exaggerated, centered art style than Beauty and the Beast had before it, it was able to pull off much more zany expressions and movements, which are especially shown during the Prince Ali music number. There's a ton of cartoonish commotion going on in this scene as Aladdin enters Agrabah, and it's probably the best example of how wild and zany this movie's movements and expressions really get. Now, compare how this scene plays out in the original as opposed to the 2019 live-action remake.
Make way for Prince Ali. Say hey, it's Prince Ali. Make way for Prince Ali. Say hey, it's Prince Ali.
Everything here has to be slower and can't be as zany because it's tied down by needing to be realistic enough for the actors to pull off here on a real set. The fact this film was live action is actually limiting what it can do, and this is a detriment to being able to pull off the same kind of zaniness that the original animated film could. It just does not work here. There is a clear limit to the live action version, whereas the animated version can pull off whatever imagery it wants because, well, it's animated. And animated media has also been a direct influence on major live action productions in Hollywood many times as well. Without the anime films Akira and Ghost in the Shell, The Matrix wouldn't exist. Without the genius, unfiltered fun of the Lego Movie, Barbie wouldn't exist. And without the anime film Perfect Blue, the Natalie Portman film Black Swan wouldn't exist. Despite this, for some reason, live action is still seen as the ultimate medium of film and the only way to truly tell a mature story by the majority of Hollywood. But the thing is, even outside of the natural limits live action has, sometimes animation ends up proving itself to be the superior medium even when it's adapting the exact same thing that a live action movie is. To give a great example, let's look back at the early 1990s when Batmania had taken over. The 1989 Batman film starring Michael Keaton as Batman and Jack Nicholson as the Joker had taken the world by storm, with a sequel that released in 1992 starring Danny DeVito in probably his best role in anything he's ever been in, and also making many legions of parents forced to have extremely awkward conversations with their children afterwards. It seems certain that Batman would continue to be extremely popular with filmgoers throughout the 1990s. Unfortunately, that didn't happen.
I freeze. I'm Batman.
With both Batman Forever and Batman and Robin being much more poorly received than the previous Batman films, it seems superhero media was dead in Hollywood forever, until, like, a year later when Blade came out. However, while Batman was becoming more and more outlandish in live action, a certain animated show was airing alongside it that would forever change the landscape of both animated television and superhero media: Batman the Animated Series. This show was a landmark in the realm of animated television, providing genuinely thought-provoking, compelling plotlines that didn't talk down to a young audience, and also explored the character of Batman himself in ways that really no other Batman media had been at the time, and in some ways arguably has since. This show also created what are generally considered the definitive versions of Batman's rogues gallery, such as Mr. Freeze, Mad Hatter, Clayface, and many others. This was also the show that brought us Harley Quinn, who started as an original character made for this show, but gradually made her way into the comics after having extreme popularity. Instead of just being a bald weirdo with a fishbowl helmet and a spray bottle that apparently sprays ice, Victor Freeze is a sympathetic scientist whose wife was killed controlled by the very corporation he worked for. Instead of being a random robber who wears funny hats, Jervis Tetch is now a former scientist who worked for Wayne Tech but went mad after being abused by his boss, and also thinking he could win over the one woman who ever showed him any positive attention in the workplace. Instead of just being a random serial killer wearing half a mask, Clayface is now a deeply troubled, washed-up actor who gains the ability to transform into any role he wants, but loses his sense of who he really is in the process. This show is willing to show much more deeply resonating, mature themes than any other Batman media at the time was at all, and I think that could really be said for the entirety of DC animated media overall. But even outside of comic book characters, series like Transformers consistently tackle much more maturely written stories in animated form as opposed to their live-action counterparts. While the Bayformers movies are the Bayformers movies,
Bumblebee, stop lubricating the man.
the animated film Transformers 1 actually tackles the fractured friendship between Optimus Prime and Megatron in a surprisingly really compelling emotional way. You really feel for the divide that is created in their companionship in this film after they find out the truth about Sentinel Prime, and the voice acting especially in this film is top notch at getting across a genuine sense of heartbreak between these two characters we've grown to love equally throughout the course of this film. But even outside of animated adaptations, a lot of the time animated media is just as capable at simply tackling themes that resonate on a very deep human level just as much as any live action media would. Going back to the quote from Mia Check that prompted this whole video to begin with about Toph not being humanized because she was a cartoon, this just isn't true because Toph is an incredibly humanized character, showing incredible resilience in the face of danger despite being blind and facing sexism from Sokka at first, which she promptly diffuses by showing she was more than competent in a fight. However, she's still shown to have a lot of very relatable flaws too that she grapples with, namely her lack of trust, which is something she gradually learns to diminish over time thanks to meeting Team Avatar and fighting alongside them. It's an extraordinary character arc that is handled very, very well, much like a lot of things on Avatar the Last Airbender are in general. And really, this can be said for so much animated media as a whole. For example, if you're wanting a deeply personal story like Good Will Hunting about someone feeling stuck where they are in life, and desiring a new chance at the life they think they should have, there are two pieces of animation that tackle this brilliantly, and I would say even do a better job than Good Will Hunting. That being BoJack Horseman and ReZero. BoJack Horseman centers on a washed-up actor named Bojack, who starred in a popular 90s sitcom but now lives in obscurity in Los Angeles. Feeling like his life has hit a standstill, he plans to come back to relevance by having a ghostwriter who also happens to be the wife of his old rival in Hollywood, Mr. Peanut Butter, write a tell-all memoir book for him to spring him back into fame and also give him the life he's wanted so badly for himself. However, despite having many chances to acquire this life for himself, Bojack finds he just can't get it because he isn't willing to change himself as a person, and as a result, just can't will himself into a better life.
Charlotte, I am so sorry.
Don't you dare. If you are not out of my driveway in 30 minutes, I will call the police. And if you ever try to contact me or my family again, I will kill you.
In a surprisingly similar vein, despite being an isekai anime, ReZero actually tackles a very similar idea, with its main character dealing with essentially the same themes. Subaru Natsuki is the main character in this show, an unemployed NEET who isn't doing anything in his life at all and skipping school, but suddenly gets whisked away to a new fantasy world. Seeing this as a newfound opportunity to get the life he feels he can get for himself and really has always wanted, he decides he needs to become a hero recognized by this world and also find a maiden who will praise everything he does so he can feel validated no matter what he does. Inevitably, however, this doesn't work out for him because despite being in a fantasy world with rules that function very differently from his normal life back in Japan, and also meeting a magical maiden named Amelia who he ends up accompanying on a big quest, he ends up suffering in this world far more than he did in the real one, since he is constantly killed again and revived over and over again on a loop thanks to this world's return by death ability that he gains. He also keeps trying to quote-unquote stand up for Amelia even when she asks him not to, and eventually she calls him out directly on this, since it's clear to her that he's only doing this for his own personal validation, not actually for her well-being. She also calls him out on having a fantasized version of her in his head who will always praise him on every choice he makes no matter what.
That's not what I'm saying! I just wanted...
You wanted what?
Let me finish. I just wanted to try and do something important for you.
Is that right? For me? But it was for you, wasn't it?
No, it was for you, I swear!
You said that to me so many times! Stop telling lies about how everything is for my sake!
I risked my life for you! All because you were important to me! You should have a greater debt to me than you could ever repay!
The version of me that lives within you must be amazing. She understands all of your thoughts, even if you don't explain them to her.
God, the show gets so real. I honestly want to do a video discussing both this and BoJack side by side, since I think they both tackle the same idea really, really well. Honestly, anime as a whole is often full of deep, mature storytelling, since oftentimes countries outside of America actually treat animation as it should be treated. I want to give a few different recommendations here for foreign animation that you might not know about otherwise, since, in all honesty, a lot of people don't. Heck, that's even why I made the thumbnail the way I did, since, let's face it, more of the general populace are familiar with things like Spider-Verse, Avatar, or Chainsaw Man than a lot of the animation I'm about to bring up. I've talked about it before, but Mary and Max is a fantastic Australian animated film from 2009 about a man with autism named Max and his friendship with his pen pal Mary, and how the two of them learn to accept more about themselves by speaking to each other through letters. It's a very emotional, quirky film with a lot of heart, and I'd say, to this day, it's still the best autism film out there. This is definitely one I'll be giving its own video in the near future. Another fantastic anime that doesn't really get talked about enough in my opinion is Go-Sick. It's an anime that came out in 2011 that's set in 1920s Europe and is essentially a noir-style mystery focusing on a young blonde girl named Victorique de Blois who stays up in a library tower at her school reading books all day. It shows her blossoming friendship with Japanese exchange student Kazuo Kujo, with whom she solves mysteries together using her wellspring of knowledge from sitting in the library all day. Victorique comes off as very cold and objectifying towards Kujo at the start of the series, but over time she develops feelings for him and learns to open herself up to the world again after years of feeling hurt by it. It's honestly a really charming series, but also gets surprisingly very, very dark at a lot of different moments, so definitely a trigger warning if you're sensitive to those kinds of things. It also has an incredibly overarching mystery that I'm definitely not going to spoil here, but had some of the absolute best payoffs I've ever seen in a mystery show. I really, really recommend this one. Please check it out if you haven't. I've never heard anyone discuss it before, which really does surprise me given the same team who worked on Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood and Mob Psycho 100 did it. Another great animated show set in the early 1900s that I highly recommend is Lackadaisy, which you can actually watch here on good old YouTube. Lackadaisy is a fantastic show featuring anthropomorphic cats in Prohibition-era America, and showing their struggle to acquire alcohol for a struggling bar, while also fighting off the mafia gangs of that era. The cats are incredibly cutely designed in this show and super appealing to look at, but the show still really isn't afraid to tackle a lot of darker themes, since it's still a pretty accurate look at this period of American history. I highly recommend this one, it's so good, and honestly it's probably my favorite indie animation on YouTube. An older French animated film that is definitely very trippy, but also pretty deep with what it's tackling is Fantastic Planet, a 1976 animated sci-fi movie about giant blue aliens who abduct humans and take them back to their home planet to keep as pets. As wild as this might sound, this film is actually really poignant with its symbolism, with much of what the humans go through as pets for these giant aliens being sort of an allegory for both civil rights and persecution of those that are different, but also an allegory for animal rights, putting the humans in a very, well, how would you feel situation. Honestly, this is an incredibly trippy but brilliant movie, and if you're someone who wants to see the best of what animation has to offer, I cannot recommend this one enough. One final recommendation that I want to cover here is The Breadwinner, which was actually created in 2017 by Cartoon Saloon, the Irish studio behind other highly acclaimed animated films such as The Secret of Kells and Wolfwalkers. To me, however, this is their best film, and a real testament to what animation can be as an art form. The film is about a young girl in Afghanistan who must disguise herself as a boy to protect her family. The film mixes incredibly dark, very real moments with a richly textured, visually gorgeous hand-drawn animation style. It's not afraid at all to tap into a lot of heart-wrenching social commentary on societal roles that are placed on women in an environment like this, and the price that families with daughters often pay as well just because of it. It's an incredibly powerful film that I cannot recommend enough. Just go watch it. Overall, animation is more than capable of creating mature, thought-provoking stories that resonate with people all around the world just as much as any live-action film, and sometimes even more so. I suppose time will tell if Hollywood will truly embrace animation as the art form it truly is. But, as I discussed today, there is more than enough of an argument out there for it with all this incredible animated media. I'd honestly like to do more videos just talking about animation with mature storytelling. So if you have any suggestions for a follow-up video to this one, or something you think deserves a standalone video, let me know down below. If you haven't subscribed already, definitely consider doing so, since I cover all film-related topics here, so if you like this video, you'll probably like the other ones I have planned as well. You can also join my Discord to hang out with like-minded people and suggest topics for me to cover here on YouTube. You can also check out my letterbox, which is linked down below, where I review movies and shows, oftentimes movies and shows I won't cover here on YouTube. All of that is linked down below. But thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you really enjoyed it. I love talking about animation, and it's something that's a big passion for me. I look forward to hopefully doing more videos like this in the future to further prove why animation is a very viable art form. But for now, I've been Otterly Noah, and I'll see you on the otter side. Bye!